Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be looking at chapter 6 of Ephesians. This is the last chapter of the book, and in the beginning verses, we really see Paul continuing his conversation about what it looks like to live harmoniously with others, right? Because in chapter 5, you look at the relationship between wives and husbands, and that's really continued on here in verses 1 through 9, where he talks about how children should obey their parents, and he talks about slaves and masters, which could also be interpreted as employees and employers in today's society, in that it is a good thing for children to obey their parents, within the realm of what biblical parenthood looks like. And it is good for employees to be, under the authority of their employer. But it also, lets us know, if you're in a position of power, it's not your job to be condescending or to be, power hungry. So I think, within these first few verses here, we really see Paul expounding more upon what it looks like to live in harmony with one another. And he wraps up the book of Ephesians with probably one of the more well-known passages of the book, where it talks about the armor of God. But before we get there, why do we need the whole armor of God? What's the purpose? And Paul answers that in verse 12, where he says that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities, and against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. And I think it's important to remember, especially I think this is really relevant for today, that human beings are not our enemies, right? It's really easy, especially in this super bipartisan age, to see people as either Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative or Christian or atheist. And it's super easy to start viewing humans who are created in the image of God as an enemy, which Paul says here that is not the case. Humans are not our enemies. They are people that are created in the image of God. And if they are lost, if they do not believe in Jesus, then it is our duty to love them and to seek to bring them to know Jesus. So human beings are not our enemy. I think that's a very, very poignant reminder in especially right now in our country, especially. You see a lot of people that are just so quick to deduce people to what they believe, right? What one believes is their entirety as a person, which that just doesn't make any sense if we're being honest, right? They're human beings created in the image of God, and we are called to love them regardless of what they believe. And so we do fight spiritual battles, right? For the rest of our lives, as long as we're following Jesus, we'll always face these spiritual battles. If you're not facing spiritual battles one way or the other, you probably don't know Jesus, because there are always going to be, in one way or another, there's going to be some sort of spiritual battle going on. And so we are not left out in the open without any tools or without any sort of guidance on how to fight these battles. Paul goes in very distinct detail here about the different tools that God has given us. And I think it's important too to look at these metaphorical tools that God has given us, and not just kind of whimsically look at them and be like, oh yeah, breastplate of righteousness, like these things are specifically assigned. And so let me give an example. The breastplate of righteousness, right? A breastplate protects your vital organs. And so I think that's, it's really telling when righteousness, we seek to be righteous and the Holy Spirit guides us into righteousness. That's covering all of this right here, like that's your heart, that's your stomach, that's, all of this, very important organs. And, you see that righteousness is what protects our spiritual body, these vital organs. So and then it talks about, our feet being shod with the preparation of the gospel. And here it's saying basically that, we walk in faith and we walk through the preparation that the Holy Spirit has guided us into. You don't, so if like you're going on a hike, you don't wear flip-flops, I wouldn't think. So like, you have to prepare for a long journey. And so once again, these items that are being referred to are not random. And so I think it's important to look at all of these and realize that they're here for a reason. All of these aspects, righteousness, prayer, faith, salvation is another one. All of these are incredibly important aspects to focus on in the Christian life if we want to be victorious through our spiritual battles. Because it's not a matter of if we face spiritual warfare, it's when. And the old saying is you're either coming out of a storm or you're going into one. And I think that's, I may not be too old, but that's it's been proven to be pretty accurate in my life. And Paul gives this metaphor of what it looks like, of what the armor of God looks like, and what it looks like to healthily fight these battles. And Paul finishes his letter by basically just saying, pray for me, always be in prayer. And I think that's also important to look at, because we are always supposed to be in prayer, as Paul himself has said, to pray without ceasing. And so that's Ephesians. We are done with Ephesians. We'll be moving on to the next book tomorrow. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.